The newly released Taurus G2S. Fitting nicely into most budgets, this 7-round single-stack 9mm performs and feels like guns costing twice the price. Materials and workmanship are on par with some of the best-made polymer-framed handguns on the market. It has excellent ergonomics and a very nice trigger. I shot this gun well, and if I can, you can. This is a tiny 9 that I have no problem recommending as a personal defense handgun, inside or outside the home. I chose this one for the list over the G2C by little more than the flip of a coin, but I just felt that I shot the S a little bit better, and I think I like the trigger a little bit better in this gun than I did the C. Smith & Wesson's new M&P 380 EZ. I went from having very little interest in this pistol to loving it, and all it took was feeling it in my hand and pulling the trigger. The 380 EZ is designed for people who have difficulty manipulating the mechanical workings of most semi-automatic handguns, but they need a dependable modern firearm for self-defense. They may not want a revolver, or there may be other issues with a revolver. The slide on this thing is so easy to rack that you might almost feel like you might break it. But don't worry, you won't. It's built Smith & Wesson tough, with great ergonomics of the M&P series. It is hammer-fired, and thus it has an incredible trigger. And because it's a 380 ACP, there's nearly no recoil at all, and it can be managed by just about anyone. Sure, you're going to give up a little bit of muzzle energy because it's a 380, but if it means that people who previously couldn't or wouldn't arm themselves now can, that's a huge win. Ruger fans have been screaming for years for the 9mm carbine to come back. Really what they wanted was the PC-9. But Ruger has finally brought back a 9mm carbine called the PC carbine. They may have made it even better than ever. As a takedown model, it strikes a great balance between several practical uses, from competition carbine, varmint hunter, home defender, to backpack-ready camping and hiking gun. And just to be sure the ball went completely out of the stadium when they hit this home run, Ruger made it compatible with Glock 9mm magazines, as well as the Ruger Security 9 magazines. A company will usually provide compatibility to a competitor's product for one of two reasons. Either they're new to the market and they're desperately trying to get some initial market share by riding on the coattails of someone who is bigger and better, sort of like the suckerfish syndrome. Or they're a mature and confident company that knows that the best way to serve their loyal customers is to give them what they want. This carbine is an incredible value, and it's a ton of fun to shoot. The Wilson Combat Beretta 92G Centurion. Expensive or exclusive is not what puts a gun on my top 10 list or any of my lists. In fact, I try to avoid filling my lists with the higher-end guns for fear that my list just becomes a shallow, most expensive gun wins type of scenario. But I also don't think it's fair that a fine gun should be punished because of its price or quality either. And such is the case with the Centurion 92G model from Wilson Combat. It looks and performs like an expensive custom shop gun should, and like we want it to, with a trigger that's like warm butter, some of the best sights in the business. It's not just another pretty face, it's a shooter. With the build quality, all the aftermarket products that are available, and all the support that's provided for the Beretta 92, and a name like Wilson Combat etched into the slide, I have no doubt that this is going to continue to be a favorite for a number of years. Smith & Wesson 45 ACP M&P Model 2.0. Well, for starters, it's a 45. Add to that, it's an M&P 45, a gun I've loved for many years. Then add to that it's the new M&P 2.0 platform with the much improved trigger, the stiffer frame, the enhanced grip texture, and the upgraded mechanics internally. I adored the first generation M&P 45, and I've had it and enjoy shooting it for many years. Despite complaining about its squishy trigger, I still love the gun. But this 2.0 model loses nothing from the original design that I loved and adds everything that I also love about the new design. So it really is the best of both worlds. Superb ergonomics and performance of an M&P and the punch of 45 ACP. You bet this is on the list. The SIG Sauer P365. I've had my share of challenges with the P365, but those have been attributed to some isolated magazine problems. Others have had additional concerns about the new gun's quality and even the design and function. Because those issues exist and they are legitimate concerns, I can't put this pistol at the top of my list. Even though, with over 1,200 rounds through mine, I have very high confidence in it. But while I certainly can't consider it the best because of the ongoing concerns, it certainly cannot be left off of this best of list. The design is innovative and bold and accomplishes what seems to be the impossible in terms of capacity for its size. I said before that I think they used Doctor Who technology when they created this gun. But it's not just about squeezing more rounds into a gun and taking a victory lap and calling it a day. The P365 shoots like a dream. It shoots like a far larger handgun, has excellent sights, and the fantastic trigger you'd expect from SIG Sauer. And it has the ergonomics to make it a great shooting handgun without having to qualify the size of it. You don't have to say, oh, it's a great shooting gun for its size. It's a great shooting gun, period. The P365 from SIG Sauer is still poised to be the holy grail of concealed carry handguns. Ah, the Glock G45. You might just think I'm putting the 45 on my list to go along with the crowd or be sure I'm not attacked by the angry fans. Or you might think that I've just lost my mind and I've lost my credibility as a gun reviewer and you're shaking your head and muttering, "Et tu, Brute." You might think all of those things and more if you haven't shot the Glock G45. But if you have, then most likely you're nodding your head in agreement and perhaps wondering why it isn't at the very top of this list. The G45 is an amazing feeling handgun to shoot. The balance feels almost perfectly centered throughout the entire cycle of the action. Based in part on the G19X configuration, and in part on the Gen 5 changes requested by FBI, but without the grip cutout for magazine stripping, the G45 was a response to requests by domestic law enforcement that liked most everything about the G19X military trials submission except for the color. This is the gun you'll take to the range with you almost every time you go. Springfield Armory XDS9 Mod 2. I really liked the original 9mm XDS several years ago, but the new Mod 2 version of this pistol is an outstanding improvement that takes good to great. The improved ergonomics on the Mod 2, the better sights, and I think a crisper trigger, make this little Wonder 9 check all the boxes for an ideal carry gun. What I found I was maybe the most surprised by was just how much fun it is to shoot. I recently had it back out to the range for some more work, and once again, I wanted to just spend the whole day shooting it. And I shoot it well, a true test of any small gun. Improvements to the grip safety should address most concerns held by people who really hated that feature. The new grip design makes it shoot amazingly flat, and it doesn't even say grip zone. The XDS9 in Mod 2 is without a doubt one of the best acquisitions of 2018. From the Performance Center at Smith & Wesson, Model 686 4-inch 357 Magnum. I know we don't usually have a whole lot of wheel guns on this channel compared to some other channels. Part of that is because they tend to be very expensive. Another reason is I don't tend to use revolvers in any practical sense or any competition. If you had to wait for me to reload a 6-gun during an IDPA match, you might as well go off and get your lunch. But every now and again, I have to treat myself to something very special when it comes along. This one came along in the form of a Guns America review. That review might not even be published yet by the time you see this, but when it is, I'll put a link below. When I was finished working with this Model 686 4-inch 357 Magnum from the Performance Center at Smith & Wesson, it came down to a choice. I could return the gun that Smith & Wesson had loaned me for the review, or I could send them a check instead and call it my precious. I'm really not sure there was a choice. This is the best feeling and shooting 686 I've ever had the pleasure to meet, with a trigger that feels more like it was crafted in the late 50s rather than in 2010s. This beauty is proof that Smith & Wesson hasn't lost a single step in terms of quality and expertise with revolvers. The Glock 19 MOS Gen5. I said when I initially reviewed this gun that I thought it was the best Glock the Glock has ever made. I still feel exactly that same way, and I can't think of any handgun that has impressed me more in the past year than this one has. I feel like it's the culmination of all things Glock, from once again having no finger grooves to the improved Gen 5 trigger group, the great Gen 5 ejection pattern, which a lot of people haven't really caught on to yet. Because it's the MOS, you have the option to mount a red dot, but you don't have to if you don't want to. It has the flared magazine well to accommodate faster reloads under stress. And Glock listened to their customer feedback and removed the half-circle cutout at the bottom of the front strap. And for good measure, they cut serrations into the front of the slide. It's the best feeling, best shooting, best equipped Glock to date. And it's the best new gun I touched all year.